7 Presidents Oceanfront Park, 38 acres of public beach on the Jersey Shore. The name promises that 7 American presidents once called this stretch of shoreline home. The truth? The real number might be 4, maybe 5. But the stories behind these men, of ambition, of tragedy, of a community building a railroad overnight to save a dying president, are far more extraordinary than any myth. The story begins with a chapel. In 1925, St. James Chapel on Ocean Avenue was on the verge of closing. A local benefactor saved it, and his attorney declared the chapel had been attended by 6 American presidents. He called it the Westminster Abbey of America. By 1930, a 7th name was added. The park that opened nearby was christened 7 Presidents Oceanfront Park. But the evidence behind those 7 names? It ranges from undeniable to almost certainly fiction. To understand how presidents ended up at this beach, you need to understand what Long Branch was. In the decades after the Civil War, this was the most glamorous resort in America. Richer than Newport, more daring than Saratoga Springs. The railroads brought it all. By 1875, a New Yorker could reach Long Branch in under 2 hours. The great hotels rose along the bluffs, the Continental, which fed 1,000 guests, the Elberon, the smartest and most exclusive hotel on the coast. And in the shadows, Phil Daly ran the Pennsylvania Club, the highest-class gambling house in the United States. Roulette, faro, and dice. A French chef fed the patrons for free. Women and locals were not welcome. Into this world of money and spectacle walked the most powerful man on earth. Ulysses S. Grant first visited Long Branch in 1867, 2 years before his inauguration. He declared it ideal for a summer residence. But when friends offered to buy him a cottage, the general refused. It would be improper, so they bought it for Mrs. Grant instead. A group of Long Branch's wealthiest men, including George Pullman and publisher George W. Childs, pooled their money for a 28-room mansion on Ocean Avenue. Julia accepted without hesitation. For 8 years, it served as the nation's summer White House. Grant held cabinet meetings on the porch. He played poker with America's wealthiest men every Friday night. Tourists strolled past hoping to glimpse the president on his veranda. Julia Grant later wrote in her memoirs, "What a boon our cottage at Long Branch was to the president." Tired and weary as he was with his monotonous official duties, he hastened with delight to its health-giving breezes and its wide and restful piazzas. But the story does not end well. In 1884, Grant was ruined by a Ponzi scheme. Broke and battling throat cancer, he began writing his memoirs at the cottage, A Race Against Death. The memoirs earned Julia nearly $500,000. The cottage was demolished in 1963. Today, multi-million-dollar homes are rising where the summer White House once stood. On July 2, 1881, President James Garfield was shot at a Washington train station. A delusional failed lawyer named Charles Guiteau fired 2 shots from behind. What followed was one of the worst medical disasters in American history. A parade of doctors probed the wound with unsterilized instruments. The bullet had missed every vital organ. It was the infections that killed him. By September, the doctors decided to move Garfield to the ocean, but he could not survive a carriage ride to the shore. So on the night of September 5th, volunteers laid 3,200 feet of temporary track from the train station to the oceanfront. They worked through the night by torchlight. The Elberon Hotel sent sandwiches. The crowd pushed the president's train car around a bend by hand. As Garfield was carried inside, he is said to have whispered, "Thank God, it is good to be here." 13 days later, James Abram Garfield died. He was 49 years old. He had been president for less than 7 months. The full story of the assassination will get its own video. But what matters here is this place. The stretch of shoreline where a community built a railroad overnight to bring a dying president to the sea. So what about the other presidents? Hayes spent his summers in Washington. Researchers have found no evidence placing him near Long Branch. Harrison is a Cape May man. His summer White House was over 100 miles to the south. Arthur? His most documented visit was the night he came to comfort the widow of the man whose murder made him president. 3 of the 7 are at best on thin ice. But try renaming it 4 Presidents Park. Two more presidents have strong connections to Long Branch. In 1899, William McKinley came to deliver a defense of the American flag at Ocean Grove's Great Auditorium and to visit his ailing vice president Garrett Hobart in West Long Branch. 2 years later, McKinley was assassinated, the second president in the seven presidents story killed in office. And then Woodrow Wilson. In 1916, Wilson moved into Shadow Lawn, a 52-room mansion, and ran his entire re-election campaign from its front porch. His slogan, "He kept us out of war." 5 months after winning, he asked Congress to declare war on Germany. Election night was one of the closest in history. Wilson's opponent went to bed believing he had won. California, which Wilson won by just 3,773 votes, tipped the election the next morning. Wilson left Shadow Lawn that November and never returned. He was the last president to summer at Long Branch. The era that began with Grant in 1869 ended with Wilson. 47 years of American power on this stretch of coast. Today, Seven Presidents Park is a public beach. Anyone can visit. You can swim where Grant walked and surf where Garfield was carried to die. On the grounds of the Church of the Presidents, there is a small tea house. It was built from the actual railroad ties that volunteers laid through the night to bring a dying president to the sea. One of the original iron rails serves as its ridgepole. 7 presidents, 4 undeniable, 3 debatable. But the stories they left behind, of power, of tragedy, of a community pushing a train car by hand, those are real. This is the first of 5 videos. Next, Grant's poker games and financial ruin. Then the full Garfield story, 79 days. Then Wilson's broken promise, and the resort itself, the hotels, the gamblers, and the fire. Subscribe so you do not miss them.